All is One Reflections. I'm Priestess Olaia Ifa Shavi, and I am a goddaughter of Her Excellency, the esteemed Reverend Priestess Oshun Funke Ianifa. I am a community priestess. I'm a spiritual warrior. I am the owner of Yumiya's Inclinations. I'm also a Yoni Steam practitioner and the executive director of a culturally specific nonprofit in Portland, Oregon. I'm everything that you need and more. Today, we will recap grimoires and books of shadows and prepare for a series of labs, customizing and curating our personal book of shadows and grimoires. So today we're going to focus on your spiritual library. And a spiritual library is a curated collection of books and texts that supports and enhances your spiritual practice. These are going to be books and literature that you've collected over a course of time, probably the course of your lifetime. As long as you're reading, you probably will be collecting books, and as long as you're practicing, you'll probably be documenting your practice. And so your spiritual library is an accumulation of all the spiritual texts that are authored by other folks, self help books, guides, teaching aids, textbooks, school books, all the things. We're going to cover grimoires. Okay. And we know our grimoire is a sacred text that serves as a personal repository for our spells, rituals, incantations, and other magical knowledge that we may obtain in our lifetime. These grimoires are going to be passed down, and I would like to say that you can consider your grimoire and your book of shadow to be your legacy ledgers. Okay. So, we're also going to cover your Book of Shadows. And we already know this is a personal and sacred text used to document your spiritual practices, experiences, and insights. So that's what we're covering today. It's going to be very brief. It's not going to be a class on grimoires and a class on the Book of Shadows. Our IA already has a class. If you need access to that class, please go ahead and ask me. I'll make sure that you can access it as long as it is accessible. There is a class already taught on grimoires and Book of Shadows. So this will be an overview. We'll briefly go over each book. And I've got my notes here, so if you see me looking over here, it's because my notes. Okay. So the purpose of this course, cementing your legacy. This is going to give you an overview of what a grimoire is and how important it is to your spiritual legacy and the information you leave for your descendants, your children and their children, and so forth. Okay. We are we are not reinventing the wheel, and we are just going to be doing an overview as I stated previously. So this is going to be a 4-part series. This is the first part, the lecture, and we are just going to talk about the things. Okay. And this series includes one lecture and 3 labs. So one lab will be on your grimoire, customizing your grimoire, adding things to your grimoire, making it your very own, putting your stamp on it, and then also customizing your book of shadows, detailing all the information and organizing it a little bit. Okay. Then we're also going to do a magic ink class so that we can have a magic ink that we can personally use in our selections that we are authoring. And then so each course, each series, each part of the series, excuse me, we'll go over a ritual protocol, a supply list, a teaching aid, and a video with inspirational suggestions. So if you're watching this after the fact, you've purchased this, or you have it for free online, you will have a teaching aid. In your teaching aid will be the ritual protocol as well as your supply list. In addition to that, all the instructions that you need moving forward for this lecture will just be more in-depth, detailed information. So let's talk about our spiritual library. And what does it mean to curate our spiritual library? A spiritual library is a curated collection of books and texts, and this supports and enhances our spiritual practices along our life. Okay, this is not something that you should already have a full-blown library. You don't have to buy any more books. If you are in that position, that is wonderful. Kudos to you. Let me know some books that you think I should check out. But as far as the curation of it is going to be based on your personal and individual journey and the studies that you embark on. So your books are going to be different. Your self-help books are going to be different. The sacred text or the religious text that you read might be different. You might have a Quran in yours. Someone else might have a Torah in theirs, while someone else will have the Holy Bible in theirs. Okay. So no one's spiritual library is going to be identical. And that is one thing that I would love for everyone to remember and just think about is do not compare your library to anyone else's library. Just think about this as a lifelong project that you're taking on, and you're curating your library, and whoever gets your library is going to be so blessed and so lucky to have all the wonderful magical books, the most wonderful self-help books, and probably some pretty interesting textbooks as well. Okay, so your spiritual library is going to include so many different types of books. As I stated earlier, there will be religious books in there, self-help books in there, also how-to books, also guides, and school books. There'll be some astrology books in there, maybe some mythology books in there. There could be some folklore books in there. I know I have some herbalism books in mine. I have a few divination books in mine. I have some crystal books in mine, so everyone's spiritual library is going to be completely different. Some of the customized selections that you are going to have an author within your spiritual library are going to include your book of shadows and your grimoire, but it's also going to include other fancier things like a memoir, or a memoir if you do an autobiography, or just different books that you author and publish and have available to the public. Some of your customized selections will include like your journals, your junk books, and some self-help workbooks that maybe you participate in and you really like the outcome of the work, and you want to keep these things within your library. So there's a lot of different ways of curating your spiritual library and having so much different text. I know I have the Book of Psalms in my library. One of my favorite books about love is Learning to Love. That is one of my favorite books just about love. And every time I read that book, I learn more about myself and how I show up in my relationships and how to reestablish myself with being and giving love in different relationships. So there are so many different books that we will find and have in our own individual libraries. So I encourage you all to share what type of books you have in the Facebook group or in the Coven chat. Let us know. What's your favorite book currently in your spiritual library? For me, currently, I have this spiritual herbalism book that I am loving very much right now. It is really, really beautiful, and I've just really been enjoying all the things that this book has to offer. So yeah, let us know. Now, I know some people don't feel like documenting is really important, and I'm going to tell you that it is. I can remember being in the first few years of my spiritual journey and doing all the different things, all the Google witching, all the Facebook grouping, and hearing all the different things. And I'm the type of person that will go along with what resides with me, what resonates with me, or what feels good. If I'm called to do something, I'll do those things. So I haven't done anything outlandish for you, but I definitely wasn't documenting. So I made a self-love jar, and I would do all these like different things really for myself, not for anyone else. But I wasn't documenting that. So I ended up recalling a lot of the things that I was doing and kind of just jotted it down, because I learned over the course of some years how important it really is to document things. And then luckily, my altar was really big. It was like one of those little 6 cube altars, because I just kept all my spiritual stuff in that one little space. So I was able to really document the herbs that I'm using and the different things that I, started using. Like, I was able to go back and document that, because documentation is so very important. Our relationship with God in the universe is deeply personal, and no one person has the same relationship or understanding of either, right? And so the importance of documenting your prayers, the importance of documenting the work that you're doing goes without saying, right? Outside of just knowing that what you're doing is working. Okay. Your contribution to the collective consciousness is important. Does not, it, no one can say that your experience or work that you have done does not contribute to the collective consciousness. It is your perspective, and it is your um it's your perspective, and it's your mark, right, in the collective consciousness. And if you plan to contribute to that, documenting is one way to contribute to that. Also, just thinking about your descendants and who's coming after you. Do you want them to struggle as you've struggled? If you've struggled to get to where you are today, do you want those coming after you to struggle in the same ways? Or do you want to lay out a path for them to follow and take what fits and adjust what doesn't? It's up to you. Also, the other cool thing to think about is whoever's getting these books is going to learn how to venerate you. So including yourself in the documentation is imperative. Okay. You are giving your rendition of your experience to the Akashic records. Like, everything that we experience, everything's in our DNA and gets passed down. And so that same thought process can be attributed to the Akashic records and how it actually gets built. It gets built from people's experiences and people documenting the things. Consider your grimoire to be a book sitting on the shelf with the librarians. And they're going to pull your shelf, they're going to pull your book, boop, this Princess Olaia from this year to this year to this year. Then they're going to flip it open, and whoever's praying for information or answers 100 years down the line, they're going to be they're going to look through my documented grimoire and be like, oh yeah, this is what you do. Or they're going to pull out my book of shadows and be like, oh, you're having the same issue that she had. This is how she rectified it. So just think about the importance of documentation and why it's important to have a grimoire, why it's important to have a book of shadows. If you're serious about your practice, you're going to be serious about documenting, because you want to submit your legacy. It's very important. And if you don't understand at this time, you will as you continue along in your journey. Especially if you're a healer of any kind, if practicing African traditional religions is not something that has happened in your family, and you're the first person in your family to actually adopt these traditions and to um, live a lifestyle of these traditions, then you definitely want to be documenting. You want to document these things so that they know why you started doing this outside of what everyone else was doing, and how it turned out for you, and how it worked for you, and what are some of the keys for them to make their own decisions. So there's a lot that goes into your Book of Shadows and your grimoire, and so documenting is one of the most important ways, or the easiest ways, that we can give important information to our descendants. And then customizing it, making it cute and pretty and all glitz and glammy is always fun. That is always, 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 always fun. What is a grimoire? You know what a grimoire is. I know you know what a grimoire is. We hear about them all the time. A grimoire is a sacred text that serves as personal repository for your spells, rituals, incantations, and magical knowledge. Like, we know this. We know what it is, right? And these books are considered to be vital tools for any practitioner, and is a acting manual or journal for one's spiritual journey. So let's say you've embarked on a spiritual journey, and you've tried to clue your child in on some of the things, and maybe they're not grasping it right away, or they don't feel comfortable, or they're not called to do it at the time, but maybe later in life they are. You've given them this grimoire, and they remember it now that they've come into their enlightenment. They have a whole book that can help them guide through their journey and enter into that space. It is a really beautiful thought that I see and feel with someone passing down their legacy, and then that legacy being carried on. So, what's in a grimoire? Um, it's going to be so many different things. Incantations, there's going to be, you know, invocations, rituals, spells. There'll be lots of prayers in your. If you're a part of the Risha Hoodoo Institute, you for sure are probably going to have your own spell book by the time your life is ready to transition, and you will be able to give your family a book of prayers that can get them through any time, right? Think about it like that. Being able to give your family something that can help them when you're no longer here on this earth, or just one of your descendants later on down the line. Your grimoire is a family heirloom, right? It's a record of your work, your tried and true tested work. It is a record of that. It's your personal account of what you've gone through, what's currently happening in your life, and what works. It's also to be considered a volume in the collection of your life within your Akashic records. So, and throughout every iteration of your life, if you are accessing the Akashic records, you know that you can access different lives that you've experienced. And so this present grimoire that we're customizing and Book of Shadows it's like a volume for this current life. You think about it like that. It's really interesting, very interesting. But you want your grimoire to be well organized and documented. Your grimoire is the intel all. This is the holy grail of Yemiya, of Michelle Yemiya. This is her life's work. This is all her cake recipes. This is how she makes her meat-free greens. This is her prosperity workings and her oils that she makes, right? This is her bath teas or her yoni steams. All of my tried and tested true Everything will be in this book. It's pretty thick. It's not even full at all, y'all. Like, at all. It's not full because I have a whole life ahead of me. I have so many things to learn and add. And so, what we're doing is customizing our grimoires, and we're going to add some of those things. We're going to section off our grimoires, make it easy for us to know what we want to do, where we want to do it, and how we want to lay things out. That's what this course is about. Your sections, table of contents, definitions, those things are up to you. What you want to add to your grimoire is up to you. How you want it to be organized and flow for the person who receives it is up to you. I have a page in the front of my grimoire for a table of contents, and that probably isn't even going to be enough. But guarantee I'm not going to start writing the table contents until I've probably more than halfway filled my grimoire. And I'll probably leave another page or two just for table of contents, just in case. Just in case I need the space, right? But I'm going to label it and I'm going to notate this is exactly for this. But I'm not actually going to do my table of contents until my book is just about done or halfway done. And I know exactly what I'm putting where. I hope that resonates with some folks who are watching this. You don't have to do any of these things. You don't have to have a table of contents. You don't have to section off your grimoire. You don't have to make sure that the flow flows well. You don't have to make sure of that. But in order for you to rest assured that the work is being understood properly and that the things are being done as you see fit, you want to make sure that your grimoire, your book of shadows are organized to some degree, especially your grimoire. It's the one that works. It's the one that has all the spells that work, all the prayers that are answered like that, all the things. So you want to make sure that it is organized and easy to follow. You might also include portals in your grimoire. You might also have drawings in your grimoire. And any relevant information in your grimoire that's key in your grimoire, that is key to the success of the workings. You may find so many different things: graphs, diagrams, charts, symbols, sigils, everything. You'll find everything within your grimoire. How to create sigils. I like doing mixed sigils. So I like to create sigils using different ways of creating sigils. So I like to use several different modalities of creating a sigil. So I might include that, my way of making a sigil, in my grimoire. Moving forward, the Book of Shadows. So your Book of Shadows is a deeply personal sacred text used to document your spiritual practices, your experiences, and your insights. Like, legitimately, it is a living document. It evolves with you. So your Book of Shadows captures your essence and like the essence of your magical and spiritual path. Your Book of Shadows is something that, it's like a journal, it's like a diary, right? But this is different. This is not just a diary that you write in every single night. This is the book that you notate all of your workings. What happened? What were the outcome? What did you need to adjust? Did you need to keep that one working going for 21 extra days? Did you need to do it for a whole 90 days? Did you have to do it for a year? What are the reasons, right? The Book of Shadow is the book that gives the juicy, good details that we need to know. Okay, so she said don't do this way, but to do it this way because the first time she did it, this happened, right? That's what your book of shadows is going to be. The living document of you. All the things that you're doing, your essence, your work, your blood, sweat, tears, all the things. It can also include like a variety of content. It will obviously have rituals and spells and incantations in them, but you can also find diary entries in books of shadows. Like folks who do books of shadows and do shadow work in their book of shadow, you'll find diary entries in them. What they were going through, what they were feeling, how things made them feel, how they were perceived. All kinds of things you will find in your book of shadows. It won't just be this is the ritual that you do for this and this is how it works. It will be this is what was going on. This is why we did this. This is what happened the first time we did it and we had to make some adjustments. It's going to be all the details. And beyond practical instructions, a book of shadows can also contain like your reflections, like I was saying, your meditations, your dreams. How do you get to your center? Right? Everyone doesn't get to their center the same. I get to the center sitting on the bank of a river, watching leaves float down the river. That's how I get to my center. How do you get to yours? Right? So those things are going to be documented in your book of shadows. As I've said, what goes in your book of shadows? Rituals, symbols, correspondences, ethics, guidelines, personal reflections, divinations. I have a book that I started just for divinations. Just for divinations. That's all it's for. Divinations. Nothing else. So when I sit down and I throw bones, I whip out my divination book. Yep, my divination book of shadows. Mm-hmm. And I document what's going on, what question I asked, how I'm feeling, what the bones are saying, what my spirit's saying, what they're showing me. Do those things. So your book of shadows will contain so many different things, and your book of shadows might not contain all the same information. My book of shadows is definitely a little bit different. I had to get a little bit creative because I got tired of feeling like I was just going and looking for little pieces of paper because I wasn't being organized, or if I was being organized, all my little pieces of paper were in one space. I still had to search through all of them and find them in all of this, right? So my book of shadows is a little bit different. I've gone and I've just added the remaining pages from my very first book of shadows. You probably can't see because of the blur, but I just went through and I just added pages to my book of shadows. Back here, I made a pocket page and I added all the pages that I was able to have and save, and how it makes sense, right? The way spirit works sometimes is amazing. And I added it to my book of shadows. The things that are tried and true in here will go in here. So that's what goes in your book of shadows. Now, this is my book of shadows. It is a journal. I turned it into a leather bound book. Shadow crafting. Let's just talk really quick about shadow crafting, because doing shadow work is not something to be taken lightly. And when you discover your shadow, you're discovering yourself. So customizing and creating a book of shadows that can be followed by the descendants who obtains it is a very nice gift to leave behind. Like when we do the shadow crafting, we're going to go ahead and take your book of shadows. If you have a journal, a spiral bound, whatever have you, we're going to take it and we're going to wrap it in cloth. We're going to add page identifiers. This Book of Shadows has the Rose of Abatala in it. And as you know, we've been doing the Rose of Abatala for about 18 months now. So the Rose of Abatala has several different pages. And in the meantime, there's workings and poems and prayers all in between there. So we'll be creating page identifiers to kind of keep the work together as it goes throughout the book, if you will. Um, we'll include a page holder, add a pocket. Just do some pretty simple things to add your ashe to your Book of Shadows and make it that much more special. Now, before the labs begin, I love creating, and I'm just going to give you a fair warning. I create every week. I sit here in my little spot and I will either work on my personal selections. I'll work on something for someone else. I have a very special grimoire that I'm working on for someone. And so I am a creator. So, fair warning, I could do this all day long. The classes are not going to be all day long, they are going to be a minimum of 2 hours. But rest assured, if you want to have a session, just let me know. So before we do any of the labs, I want to make sure that you are a little bit prepared. I want you to go ahead and do a meditation and visualize how you need to customize your Book of Shadows and your grimoire. You may even get downloads on what other texts you should include in your library, and I want you to go ahead and purchase those books. Okay, go ahead and obtain them if you have any type of downloads on the books that you need to purchase. Um, and then you're gonna purchase a hardcover journal. If your Book of Shadows is in several different books right now and it's not one solid book, we're gonna go ahead and get you going on an organized path and get you a hardcover journal. It doesn't have to be this big, it can be whatever size you prefer. I just like to have space. So go ahead, purchase you a hardcover journal. You're going to also be getting the fabric for that you want to cover it with, to customize it for yourself. So don't worry what's actually on the journal because we're going to cover it up. Okay. You're going to be wrapping it in fabric of your choice. And this is just me, but a hardcover, because this is your personal textbook of your spiritual practice. Remember how thick and heavy textbooks were when we were in school? Consider the text. This is the textbook for your descendants. Just consider that for a little bit. And you want it to stand the test of time. So hardcover is what I would love to see you all have and to get going on your selection. And there's nothing wrong with having multiple volumes in your selection. I have multiple volumes in my selection, okay? But you want to have one solid Book of Shadows. Unless you have multiple children and you have to do multiple books, at least make sure all the information in that book is contained in that one book. You want to make it simple. You want to make it easy to follow and easy to flow to some degree. It's your Book of Shadows, right? It's not easy to understand. You're also going to create a minimum of one sheet of homemade paper, just one sheet of homemade paper. That's all you need, unless you want to create more, but we only need one. You're going to purchase an emblem or create an emblem for your grimoire, and this can be a charm, it can be a crystal, it can be whatever calls to you to be enchanted. okay, for protection. So make sure that you go ahead and find an emblem for your grimoire. And then you're going to take a photo of all the supplies you have for yourself, and you're going to share it in the Facebook group and the Coven chat. The other thing that I did not mention is you want to have a photo of yourself. Find a photo of yourself that you love, that you feel the most pretty in, that you feel like you're the most divine in, or you feel like your energy is just the highest. Find that photo and print it off. I'm going to do some things. You can also purchase a handmade leather bound journal from me. I have a few over here, and I have a few over here that I'm working on. These are really nice. The grimoire that I'm working on, the custom one, very thick, very beautiful. I'm so excited to show it, but that'll be later on. So go ahead. If you have any questions, or if you want to know some suggestions for grimoire or even a hardcover journal, go ahead, DM me, reach out to me, and I will let you know for sure. Okay. So that is everything for today. I know it wasn't what you really expected. If you're in this class, then you have a teaching aid, and that teaching aid has the complete supply list. It has a further extensive list of books to include in your spiritual library. It has a detailed list of the reasons for the grimoire, what can be included in the grimoire, as well as the book of shadows and all of that. So if you're watching this class, you should already have the teaching aid with all the details that you need on that teaching aid. Okay, I will be seeing you guys on the 18th. Well, we will get to going into the goddess grimoire crafting studio. We are gonna make some magic, get ready, get your offerings. I'll go over really quickly some of the things that are on the supply list. So fabric big enough to cover the outside of your book of shadows. And also as many volumes as you need. If you want to go ahead and go through and take some and combine some, or cover up this one because you really, really like this one, go ahead and do that. But you're going to get as much fabric as you need to cover up the book of shadows, and as many volumes as you have that you want to do this to. You're going to get different design pages and papers. You can use construction paper, you can use painted pages, drawings, old letters from people, photos. You could use designed and pre-printed pages as well. I have a lot of that I really love. You're going to need your favorite glue, some scissors, a ruler, markers, and pencils are optional. Paint pens are optional. Printed photos, stickers, strings, ribbons, cords, lace, fabric, scraps, like anything that you want to be creative with. Anything that you're like, I'm going to use this one time. I don't know what I'm going to use it for, but it's going to be something cute and creative. Pull it out. Maybe you might need it for your grimoire. If you have a white chime candle, you're going to use a white chime candle. And if you've previously taken Priestess Omoshule and Mai's class, the Protection Black Salt class, you want to have some of that. You also want to have patience. And I know this is not your average thing on the supply list, but we're going to be crafting. And this is a book that is going to stand the test of time. So you want to make sure that you're patient with yourself. Whatever I'm showing you, I've been working on mine. So please don't try and compare yourself to anyone. What you have is for you. So be patient with yourself. Love on yourself during this process, and all will be well. You want to bring in your favorite playlist of music. So while we're crafting, because I plan on crafting that day. So I'll be having a playlist going, but just your favorite playlist that makes you feel good. Doesn't have to be anything special, anything, extraordinary, but it does need to make you feel good. It needs to help you get your creative juices flowing. If you're able, cement glue. I love cement glue because it really be cementing some shit. So cement glue is good. Like I said, various cardstocks are wonderful. Big, small, white, black, whatever meets your fancy. Um, Homemade paper. You also want to have an emblem, a charm, or a flat crystal. Flower petals and sigils you use or have created. Okay, so that is a supply list for what you want to have going into the Grimoire series. And that list is interchangeable for both all the labs. The last lab is going to be the Magic Ink Lab. And I did not discuss the Magic Ink Lab because that is just writing with intention. We will discuss that later on. And that supply list will come out later on. So the first two classes, this is the supply list that you'll need. Once we get closer to doing the Magic Ink, then I'll go ahead and give that information out as well. Okay, so thank you so much for tuning in today. I appreciate you. I hope you are getting ready to make your grimoire very special. I love my grimoire. I'm so in love with it. And I just thought that maybe we could do some crafting together. I love when my little sis, Oshun Kamibi, and I get on and we craft together. We haven't for a little bit because we've been super busy, but crafting with one another is something that is fun and it's a great pastime, even if it's virtual. Time knows no energy. Distance knows no energy. So I hope you're ready and I look forward to crafting with y'all. As I always say, test these waters if you want to. Peace.